Yes, I am Denise Newton Fitzpatrick. I am an advocate for the mentally ill and also the homeless in regards to housing discrimination. I am a fighter for civil rights. Overall, I am an advocate for equality. I am on YouTube. I have been on YouTube several years ago, and I made some videos, but I did not really stay up with it. I didn't pay attention to what I was doing. I didn't really set my YouTube channel correctly. Did not even know I had one. Made some videos and just made some. Didn't do anything with it. Over the last few days, I decided that I would go back to my YouTube and I would start making videos again, and I would do it the correct way. I made quite a few videos, a couple years ago, at least 25, but again, I didn't do anything with it. And so I have deleted most of those videos, and I'm saying that I am making new videos, new and improved. I do have a couple videos, old videos remaining on my channel. They're my first two videos that I made, and then there's a couple of other old videos, but the other videos I have made over the last few days. I thought to myself that I should introduce who I am and the kind of work that I'm doing, instead of just making videos without really giving my title, but not really saying what has brought me to where I am as far as what I do. I am a person that was reared by two of the best. My dad was a fighter for civil rights, and he told me as a child, when I was growing up, he said, if you don't know your rights, you don't have no rights. He told me to stand up for my civil rights and the civil rights of others. I was born to Chester and Modell Newton, and I am the youngest of 7 children. My dad was a well-educated man. He was a minister of the Bible, and again, he was a fighter for civil rights. At a young age, again, Daddy taught me about civil rights, not only telling me to stand up for my civil rights and the rights of others, but he taught a lot on the lives of Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, my idol. I began to have a deep love and a deep desire to learn more about the lives of Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, my idol. Daddy told me that knowledge was power, and he told me that as much knowledge as I could get would take me a long way. So having desire to learn more about civil rights and the acts of those civil rights fighters during that era, I have now walked in my dad's footsteps as a fighter for civil rights. Daddy taught me in all of my endeavors to remember to hold firm to teachings of the Bible. And at an older age, several years ago, or more than several, I wanted to know the truth of the Bible, and because I remembered my dad's teachings. And I've learned that at Proverbs 31:9, it tells me to stand up, speak out, and to judge righteously and to defend the rights of the lowly and the poor. Not only am I an advocate and a fighter for civil rights because of that, but mainly because of my love for God, and remember the teachings of my dad, but because I, along with my son, are victims of housing discrimination, as proven in a court of law. When illegal housing discrimination is proven, as ours was, it constitutes a civil rights violation. So, remembering the teachings of Daddy, and also remembering back in the, I think it was July 2nd, 1964, I remembered in my research that John Fitzgerald Kennedy signed the Civil Rights Act at the time with Martin Luther King looking on. I really became really interested in civil rights, and it's always been with me. I remember when I lived in Atlanta, Georgia, I had several victories over discriminatory landlords in regards to their unfair housing practices. Then in 2012, me and my son having a bout with homelessness, I joined as an advocate for the homeless in the Bronx part of New York. The name of the organization was nonprofit, and it was called Picture the Homeless. Now, this organization was and is still to end homelessness. It focuses on human rights, police violence, and other social justice issues. Me and my son moved to Atlanta, Georgia in 2013, where I eventually joined an organization called the Task Force for the Homeless, as I stood up for the rights of those of the homeless community. The goal of the Task Force for the Homeless was, of course, to be a voice for the homeless community. So in Wake County Human Services in Raleigh, North Carolina, when their desire was to eliminate a long-term food distribution at a local park, that incident being called Biscuitville, having made the headlines of the Time magazine, was just what I wanted to do. It was right down my alley, was to stand up and fight for those of the homeless community. On a particular day, here at Raleigh, North Carolina, there were a group of organizations that had been were feeding that day and had been feeding in the park. An officer walked up and he told one of the organization members, "If you give out another biscuit, you will be going to jail. Do not feed the homeless." That prompted and that began to cause and did cause a ruckus here in Wake County. Me and some of the other people that were present that day arranged to speak with the Raleigh City Council as we stood up against that elimination of food distribution to the homeless. I was one of the speakers again, and I spoke then on the issue of what I felt strongly was a violation of the homeless community's civil rights. I spoke a little bit earlier that I filed a lawsuit myself against Wake County Human Services for making housing unavailable for my son. I'm going to go briefly into that, and I won't talk long on it, because I do have some things I have to do, and you may as well. But Wake County Human Services made housing unavailable for my son because he has a mental disability. The Fair Housing Amendment Act, which was amended in 1988, includes members of a protected class, protection against housing discrimination. My son has a diagnosis of mental illness, as in schizophrenia. When they made housing unavailable for my son, I filed a lawsuit against Wake County. Wake County wanted to change the housing program that I was in. They wanted to change the rules I had signed to that gave me the right to request a change in family composition after they'd already initially excluded my son. They then wanted me to sign into a new program that would change the rules to what I had already signed into. When I refused to do that, they threatened me and intimidated me. Intimidation and harassment is another count of discrimination. They harassed me and said if I did not come down to their office and sign into the new program, then I would risk losing the subsidy and I would lose my utilities. At the time, I was unemployed and I wasn't retired as I am now. And I was receiving a utility allowance. Well, when I wouldn't sign into the program, that threat was also that I would get the utilities cut off, as I mentioned. Well, I never did go in, not right away. And finally I met with an individual of a supposed to have been so-called housing enforcement agency. They told me to go down and see the rules to the new program. I said, what for? I'm not going to sign anything else. I knew what they were doing. They wanted me to sign into a new program. And if I signed into the new program, that would change the rules. I could request a change in family composition, meaning I would have been agreeing for them to keep my son out. Well, I said, I can't do that. I will not sign into a new program to help them to keep my son out. They continued to harass me, and finally, I said to myself, I'm going to go down. I'm not going to sign anything, not a new program. I'm not going to hang myself that way. Coming from a civil rights family, knowing all about civil rights, raised in civil rights, there's no way I was going to go down and sign it. But I went down, and when I went down, the assistant housing director came and met me in the hall. They told her, I'd gone in and signed in, and she'd been called, and she came out in the hall, and she told me she needed me to sign. She thought I was there to do that. Well, let me go back a little bit, because I'm missing a very important point. Before I went down, before I decided to go down, I sent in something called a cease and desist. I said, cease and desist this harassment for me to come in and sign into a new program. And if you keep it going, then I will hold you accountable. When she came to the hall, she's rubbing my hands. And I had to back up a little bit, I'm like, whoa, and she rubbed my hands. And she says, I need you to sign. I see you're here. I says, I am here. I said, but I'm not here to sign. I said, by the way, let me see the rules, please, to the new program that you want me to agree to. At that, she said one of the most ridiculous things that I had ever heard. You're talking about an insult of intelligence, an insultant. That's what that was. She said these words, Miss Fitzpatrick, I can't let you see the rules to the new program unless you sign first. I said, 1 minute, ma'am. Let me get this clear. Are you telling me that you want me to sign into a new program without knowing what I'm signing, without seeing the rules first? I said, that's not why I came down. I came down to say this. Let me see the rules that you want me to agree to. Because all the harassment and all of that, and I thought, wait a minute, they have barked up the wrong tree. Now, they have got a civil rights person here. They were raised in it. This is the kind of thing they're used to doing to people, the community, the people that needed this type of housing and all that. And she said this to me. She said, could let me see the rules? And I said, let me say this. I said, I had a suitcase at the time, a little briefcase. I said, I'm going to go in this briefcase, and I've got some papers. And I'm going to flip these papers over. And I am going to ask you to sign. You're going to see what's on the other side. And then after you sign, I'm going to flip the papers back over and let you see what you signed. If you do that for me, I'll sign for you. She said, I can't. I said, have a good day. Well, because I never signed into the program, and I definitely wasn't going to sign without seeing the rules. I already knew what the program was about. She confirmed that day. Again, I did decide to go on down after sending the cease and desist. Let me see the rules to the program, And anyway, about a month after that was July of 2015. In 90 and above degree weather, I was about 62. My utilities were cut off. I had no air, no hot water, and no electric. I had filed the lawsuit, though, in November of 2014. I had went to the orientation on October 14, 2014, and that's when I signed into that program that the participant can request a change in family composition. I found that lawsuit. I hadn't heard anything from those that I signed filed the lawsuit, the complaints with. But again, during that hot month, all that was cut off. Well, I contacted legal aid and I told them that I had filed a lawsuit. Not filed a lawsuit. I had made a complaint back in November 2014, and I'd made the complaint with legal aid. I said, I'm here with no utilities as a result of the case. The lady said, I think I remember the name. We were talking about you. She said, let me go and pull your file. You said your name was, I said, Denise Fitzpatrick. I remember that. Let me go pull the file. She pulled the file, and let me go back, because I'm trying to remember, because it's on the top of my head. The materials were cut off, and I had received, let me get it right, I had received an eviction notice, because the portion of the subsidy, I was being zero rent then, portion of the subsidy was cut off, and the utilities were cut off, is what it was. And I did tell that to the legal lady when I got on the phone, and she said that they would get on the case. Well, I didn't go anywhere because the lawsuit finally kicked in, and Wake County went back and forth with me, trying to get me to, they used the word settle. Actually, they want me to just drop the case. They seemed that they had barked up the wrong tree. And of course, we ran in and out of the courts for about 6 months, and they were trying to get me to settle on their terms and drop the case and settle with no offer me any compensatory damages. And I thought, these people think they don't know yet, you know, they don't get it, you know. And I said, I'm not going to sign anything at all. And, you know, they kept going, and then the lawyer that I had, legal aid, she was saying, you know, they proposed again, I said, listen, let me talk with them. I'm not going to sign anything else. I'm not going to sign, I didn't sign the other stuff, the new program, and I'm definitely not going to sign to a settlement where there's no offer of compensatory damage of what you have filed a lawsuit in prayer relief for. I remember off the top of my head how, you know, it's going. And I'm going to get a little started at times on, you know, the actual, but I'm giving you the gist of everything. Anyways. And I went on and kept saying no, no, no. Finally, they told me that, the lawyer told me that Wake County had filed a motion to dismiss. I said, really? I said, file a motion then for preliminary injunction pending trial. And she looked at me as though, what is this lady knowing about a preliminary injunction pending trial? As though, you know, she's supposed to be stupid, I guess they thought, you know, very stupid, you know. If you needed that kind of housing, you know, I did back then I was supposed to have been, you know, black, stupid, you know. I wasn't supposed to know anything about a preliminary injunction pending trial. And she looked at me and she said, Mrs. Patrick, she said, I know you're not a lawyer, but have you studied law? I said, is that the right motion to file? You said they filed a motion to dismiss, correct? Yes, they did. I said, then a preliminary injunction pending trial, is that the right motion then to refute or to answer, to refute the motion to dismiss? She said, it is. It is, Mr. Fitzpatrick. She said, if discrimination is found in the early phases of the lawsuit, then I finished it. I said, then I'll win my motion for preliminary injunction pending trial. In Wake County, a government agent would lose their motion to dismiss. Is that correct? She said, it is, ma'am. Yes, it is. I'll do that. Well, the harassment kept going on anyways, even though she had filed that in the courts. I'm just off the top of my head with, I remember September the 29th, 2015, the case went to, that's when we went to trial. We didn't go to trial yet, but we battled, never did go to trial. We battled and battled up until December. And then the cross-examination, wait a minute, September 29, 2015. And in December, we battled all the way to December. And during that time, the judge, of course, he had a lawsuit and all of the statutes, 42 U.S.C. Code, which is Health and Welfare and Fair Housing Amendment Act, FHAA, Section 504 Habitation Act of 1973, U.S. Constitution, American Disability Act, Human Rights, again, when it's proven civil rights, civil liberty violations. Eventually, Chapter 35A of the North Carolina Guardianship Statutes was violated. That kind of was before this, and I'll go back. I'm going to make another video, but I'll probably be a little more clearer because off the top of my head, I'm trying to But anyway, after the cross-examination, then it was proven that put icing on the cake. He knew it was a prima facie because of the laws. He could see that it was discrimination by just looking at the case, and the cross-examination just put the icing on it. But just to make it short, just a little bit about what I've done. I have my preliminary injunction, it's public records file 15 CVD CCAL V Victor D Dog 9292. There's more to the case. They try to keep it out of public records, and they wanted to get the documents sealed. And they asked me if I wanted it sealed. They said the county didn't want it in public records, they didn't want it in the media, and all this stuff. And you know, there's been a lot of damage and a lot of serious stuff. I'm going to go back into it later, and I've got some, the newspaper article you can see online on Facebook, and also you can Google it still. In the March 16, 2016 edition of the Indy Week newspaper online, it says, why was a Wake County woman's lawsuit settled against her will? Because after I beat them, then I had the right to go to jury because I won a preliminary injunction pending trial. But how do they keep it from jury? I'm kind of jumping around. How do they keep it from going to jury? Well, even after I won the preliminary injunction pending trial, Wake County continued to try to get me to settle the case they didn't want to go to jury. And they ended up giving me another act of injustice. They gave me a guardian ad litem just to get the case settled. Well, the decision settles up to the client. But they did a crooked lesson. Look at them. I said, back, I said, them hang yourself again. You don't give someone a guardian ad litem unless they've been adjudicated as being incompetent or incapacitated. I'm not that, and I have never been adjudicated as that ever. They arranged for me illegally in another injustice to give me a guardian ad litem. And that guardian ad litem settled that case against my will. So I thought it settled. And I am going to go into a deeper detail about the case, the damages. What I've said right now is just the tip of the iceberg. They ended up taking my guardianship, a loving mother. My son lives with me now. A loving mother, because they excluded him from housing. Then they took the guardianship and have housing. They're the ones that kept him out of the housing, bragged on the kind of mother. I'm going to go into that a little deeper on how that was done and the types of facilities that he lived in after that, and bed bug bites and 31 pages. I got 40 pages from DHHS, and every home was exploitation, abuse, neglect. It has been quite rough, the devastation, and it's been, you know. And again, what's in the paper and what I've said right now is just the tip of the iceberg. I've got the newspaper in here. I think I just have one person on. If you're still on when I come back, I'm going to just grab the paper. If you're not, then I can understand because it's been kind of long. Miss Adams, I'm glad you came on. But if you're not back when I come back and grab the paper, then try to listen to me later. Be right back. Oh, she's still here. Thank you so much. I know that's what I'm trying to get off with. Like, you know, if I try to go more onto it right now about this case, then of course it will, you know, it's just been long enough. I don't keep you, you know, where you to the point where it's so tired to listen that you cut off on me. I appreciate you coming in. But this is the preliminary order, preliminary injunction pending Trump. You can see it good. And it just shows this is a public records file, and this is me. They cut the utilities off. This was company came after me for payment. And they got completely paid in this case afterwards. And it has me here, and it has the county that I sued, and this is the order granting preliminary injunction. And of course, I've got a slew of papers, but just for right now. The other paper I have here is the motion denying, motion to dismiss. This is where they wanted to get it dismissed, and of course, the cross-examination, since discrimination was found in it, then they lost this motion to dismiss. And this is a public record file, again, 15 CBD 9292, and that's the order of service. But this is, and of course the lawsuit itself, like I said, I'm going to go back into the YouTube and show, and talk more in depth about the case. This is not in depth at all. I'm going to break down laws. I'm going to show the lawsuit itself. I'm going to talk more in depth about the damages that we experienced since then, and how we've come to be where we're now, and more about my advocacy work and that. But this is the paper that, like I said, you can read this online. This says, when Denise Fitzpatrick refused to settle her lawsuit against Wake County, a court-appointed guardian of the library, it says guardian here, settled it for her. And inside of the paper is about 7 pages, and it has my son's picture in here. And as I said, this is it here. We're in the Black Archives in Chapel Hill. And this, of course, I don't know, I'm trying to show you this. This is my son in the paper. And, you know, but like I said, I've got papers this thick, and public records, it's really thick. And again, I'm going to go back into it. This is just giving a little idea so people on YouTube, if they look at my videos, then they can just have a general idea of what I do, why I'm an advocate now, and, you know, that kind of thing. Homelessness, we actually, the case resulted in homelessness. We're not homeless now or anything, but homelessness was one of the damages due to this bad case. So I am going to run now, and I appreciate you for hanging with me so long, Alexis, and I hope that you will subscribe to my page, because I'm not just talking about illegal housing discrimination, but I am also talking about civil rights in regards to police brutality, racism, the things that's going on now. I'm talking about modern day, my son back there, hey Julian, modern day slavery or eco-slavery. Talking about, I'm sharing a lot of civil rights stuff about, in regards to my research on what's going on in these times. Again, I'm God-fearing, and I am talking about what's really going on as far as the spiritual warfare that we suffer, not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces in higher places, or heavenly places. So my videos on YouTube, New and Improved, will cover a lot of different areas as I stand up, speak out, and defend the rights of the lowly and the poor and others as I walk in my Father's footsteps. So if you want to subscribe, I hope you do, and hope you share it, and others can come in. You're not going to see the word subscribe on the YouTube channel, but you're going to see a little bitty box at the end of the videos. At the end right-hand corner is a water mark, and you would just click on or touch on the watermark, and then it'll come up where it'll say subscribe. So I hope you will subscribe. I said I've got a lot of more videos coming, and a lot of excitement coming, and it won't be as boring as this probably is. I'm going to talk in further detail about this, and you might need to bring up some tissues if you come in and hear the further details about this case, because many people have actually started crying. They felt real sad. You know, they said, "Wow, you guys are really strong." I said, "Oh, God is. You know, God is good all the time. He's great. He's powerful. It's the only way we can still be here. It's the only way we are here." And I hope that you will, Alexis, come in again. And I appreciate you so much for hanging in all this time. And again, they won't be boring. The videos aren't going to be this boring anymore. They're going to be full of excitement. My son's going to speak. He's an advocate as well. He has schizophrenia, but he's deep and he's very smart. And we hope to travel of the states and hopefully the country as we stand up for civil rights. And that's what we're doing. We have pages on Facebook, and we're doing a lot of things. Thanks for coming in, and you have a wonderful day. Thank you, Alexis. Bye-bye.